Hello everybody, my name is Demancho and welcome to a Blender tutorial. Have you ever wondered how I create my beautiful thumbnails or how YouTubers or anyone online really creates their renders of their beautiful characters, being able to bend them around and add armor or accessories? Well, you have landed on the right video, as today I am going to show you a beginner's guide to Blender. So let's not waste any more time and let's get right into it. Alright, so you're going to want to start by going over to blender.org to download the actual software. Now, Blender is a completely free software, it's fully open source, and it's used to create renders of images or even videos. But today we're only going to scratch the surface of this very extensive software, and I'm going to make this as simple as possible for any new beginner trying to learn Blender. And don't worry, it's not that hard. It seems hard. It's a really complete software, so it might seem like there's a lot of buttons at first, but trust me, it's going to be easy, and I'm going to take you step by step. So what you're going to want to do is start by downloading Blender by hitting this big blue button right here. Now, all the links are going to be in the description, like always, so don't worry about that. As a disclaimer, I am going to be using a slightly older version of Blender for today's video, but the layout of all the buttons will be exactly the same for you. It's just that the interface is a little bit nicer on the newer versions. Now, something else you're going to need for the actual software is a rig. Now, what is a rig? Basically, a rig is, you could say, most of the hard work already done for you, because the main bulk of the work you have to do in Blender is actually create the model and add the textures, and all of that will be already done for you in what's called a rig. So you can simply head over to this website right here, which again, I will leave it in the description. And what you want to do is download a rig. Now, there's multiple rigs. I recommend you download the BSS Edit. Now, the difference between this one and the ones above is just that the BSS Edit has all of the latest blocks that you might have found in the latest versions, like, for example, 1.16 and so on. So download that and save it on your computer somewhere where you can find it pretty easily later on. So now that you've done all of that, you want to simply install Blender by running it as administrator or whatever you do to install software, and then launch it up, fire it up, and I'll meet you there. Alright, so you just started Blender and you should be greeted by an interface which looks a little bit like this one. Now, like I mentioned before, I use a slightly older version of Blender, Blender 2.78, and therefore the interface should look a little bit different. Yours, if you're using the latest version, should be a little bit more refined and a little bit more modern, but everything is going to be exactly the same whether you use this version or the newest versions, which I do recommend. So what we're going to start by doing is getting rid of this window simply by clicking behind it. And then you can see we have a cube right here also with a little light right here. And what we're going to do is we're going to start by right clicking on these. All right, this is how you select stuff in Blender. You right click on it. And then we're going to hit the delete key, and then you can either click on delete or hit enter. And we're basically going to get rid of those because we don't need them. We just want a clean interface. Now, before you go ahead and delete everything, don't delete this one because this right here is actually the camera. All right, you can see that if I go into the camera view, this is what your actual render will be. Now, I'll get into detail how I got this camera view to show up in just a second, but right now, we're just going to get the hang of the interface. Now, to move around like I am doing right now, to pan around, you want to use your middle mouse button, right? That's the one located on your scroll wheel. So you want to use that button to move around. And then if you want to simply drag click, instead of using your left click, which you cannot do, you want to hit shift and then use the middle mouse button again, right? So again, middle mouse button only to pan around like that. And then if you want to drag, you want to hit shift, keep pressing shift, and use the middle mouse button. All right. So this is how you move in Blender. Now let's move on to the actual render part. So the very first thing we're going to want to do is we are going to want to select right here at the top, Cycles Render. Now, the difference between a Blender render, a Blender game, or a Cycles render is the way that the image is generated. In our case, we're going to use Cycles today. So make sure you select that, and the interface should not change too much. And what we're going to start by doing right now is getting the hang of how to insert an object, how to scale it up, how to then be able to rotate it and do all of that thing. And we're going to start with very simple block, and then we're going to get into the character and how to do that. So what you're going to want to do is going to file up here and then hit append. Append basically means add, all right? You want to add something. So click on that, and then I'm going to blur my screen probably because I might have some sensitive files right here. And you want to go into your Cycles rig, which for my case is right here, and then open that up again. You should now see my screen again. And now you want to go up here and select the correct blend, all right, the correct rig. Now for blocks, we're going to use this one right here, Minecraft blocks rig.blend, all right, and double click on that. And you should have all of these different folders, right? And we're going to select the object folder. And this one contains, as you can see, all of the different blocks in Minecraft. And you can just scroll and see all of the different ones, all right? So we're just going to get a simple one. Let's get a chest right here, all right? And we're going to double click on that, and bam. If we now move around, you can see that the chest has been added into the interface right here. But at the moment, it looks a little bit weird, all right? And you can see it also has all of these weird little bones, you could say, because they're actually bones. And this is because you can actually make it so the chest opens. So this is a good block to start manipulating. Now let's first address the issue, why is there no texture? And that is because you want to go down here and you want to select texture just like so. Now, another issue that you might have is once you select texture, your chest might be all blurry. Mine isn't right here, but that is because you have something called UV maps, which is not set correctly. So you want to go into file right here, user preferences, right? And then you want to grab your user preference, and then you want to go to the system tab up top, and you want to make sure that mip maps, not UV maps, I got it wrong, sorry, mip maps is deselected. You can see if it's selected, you get a blurry texture. But in the case of Minecraft, we want nice crisp edges, so we want to make sure you unselect that, and then everything should be good to normal, and you should now have a chest right here. And what you're going to start to be able to do is you're going to be able to hold the left click on these arrows right here, and you're going to be able to move the chest around. Now, let me just do Control Z and make sure you actually select the bones, all right? So right click on the bones, so you select it, and you can see therefore we're moving the bones and the chest at the same time, right? And then move it into the shot right here, for example, right? I'm going to zoom again and get it into the shot like that. Now, how do you then play around with that chest and open it, all right? And this is where it's going to get a little bit more complicated, but it's still going to be fine, so don't worry about it, right? We're going to go up here at the top, in the top left. Now, like I did not mention this, but all of the different key presses should be appearing at the top right here as I do them. So you want to click on the little plus icon, all right? And this is going to bring up the different sub-assemblies, you could say, or what the chest is made up of. And you can see there's this thing called pose. Now, this is not here on everything. Things like items or simple blocks won't have them, but things that you can actually move around like a chest will have it. And what we can do is we can now start playing around with this chest, opening it. And we're simply going to click on that pose icon, and your bones should have changed color a little bit like that. So this is now, you are now in the phase where you can start editing the pose of your chest. And in our case, we are going to select a bone. Now, like I said before, to select a bone, you simply right click, right? And you can see I can select the different bones. I'm going to select this bone right here. And then to rotate it, all you're going to do is hit R on your keyboard. And you can see that I can start rotating my the chest and making it open just like so. All right. Now you can also deselect the pose up here simply by clicking on it again. And then you can select your actual assembly and you can hit R again. And you can see that I can now rotate my chest. Now, this might be a little bit of a weird rotation. So you might ask yourself, how do I get the correct rotation? And to do that, you want to hit Z. So this is one rotation around the Z axis. Now your axes are right here at the bottom of your screen. All right. So this is the Z axis. You can also hit X, and this is going to rotate it around the X axis. And you can also hit Y to do that. And with these three combinations, you should be able to have any rotation possible. And I'm just going to set my chest just like so. All right. So this is basically how you get a block inside of it. One last thing you can do is you can also hit S, and S will actually scale up or down your chest. All right. So make sure you select the bones so you scale them with the chest, and let's make it a little bit smaller, just like so. All right. So this was how to get the chest. Now let's do the exact same thing, but to get this time a character. So let's append again. And this time you want to go back into your cycles rig, just like that. And you now want to get this simple rig right here at the bottom. All right. And then go into group and bring up character like that. And now we have a character, which again, we can select and we can move around. Just make sure you are selecting the bones. If you mess up, you can hit Control Z, and then you can simply move your character around just by using those arrows. You can translate it, all right? And let's move it down a little bit, just like so. And then you're going to be able to do the exact same thing as your chest, simply by up here, clicking on the little plus icon, then selecting pose, and then you can basically rotate your arm around. So let's see, let's rotate it around the X axis, and then let's do a little rotation around the Y axis, and let's do a little pose like that. Now, let's say you accidentally forget to hit R and then you hit Z, and everything will go pretty much like the textures will disappear. Now, if this happens to you, all you need to do is simply go down and hit the texture button again, just like so. Not that complicated, very simple. So you can also, of course, make this pose even more complicated. You can add rotations like this. Let's maybe make it so it turns a little bit this way. I mean, that looks a little bit weird, but that is fine. This is just to show you the basic controls that you can have on your character, just like so. All right, let's bring the leg forward a little bit like that. Okay, this doesn't look too bad, all right? Now, one of the things you might ask is, how do I get the skin of my character to show up, right? And I'm going to show you that right now. So what you're going to do is you are going to make sure you unselect the pose if you have that selected. And then you're going to go over here on the far side to this texture right here, or actually, all right, let's make sure we select the right one. Okay, sorry, you have to select your character. I got that wrong. All right, select your character and then go to the texture tab right here. And then what you want to do is you want to click this little button right here. Now, the first time you click it and you select the first option, you should get an error. That is fine. Just click that button again, just like so. Again, I'm going to have probably my screen be a little bit blurred as I get to the correct. So now what you want to do now is get to your directory where you have, or your folder basically, where you have your character skin. All right. If you don't have it right now, you can also download any skin off any website if you want. So get your skin and then double click on that, and you should have something that looks probably like this. All right. Now, why is your skin all messed up? It's basically because after 1.8, Minecraft decided to change, or Mojang decided to change the way that skin layout was done. So basically, we now need to tell the tell Blender that this skin was made after 1.8. So what you want to do is go to this tab on the right, the tab that's on the left of the one that we just clicked, and then you want to head down to the bottom to UV maps, and you want to click on plus 1.8 skin, and you should see that your skin comes into order and everything should be fine. Now the problem is, if I hit this render button, I haven't shown you how to render yet, but there's two things that you can see. First of all, we have the skin that is still all messed up, and then we have this giant purple box on our head. So what you're going to want to do is firstly click on this little camera icon, because right now we are seeing the 1.8, or at least the Blender is rendering the skin like it was made after 1.8 in the actual software, but when it's rendering it like I'm doing right now, as you can see, it's still before 1.8. So you have to select this little camera at the top. As you can see, I am right now changing. So make sure that that little camera is selected on the plus 1.8 skin option. All right, now why did we have a purple box on our head? And that is because, as you can see, there's an extra layer on top of our head. And this is basically if you want to add a hat to your character. Now for us, we're simply going to hit the delete key, and we're not going to get into that today because that is a little bit more complicated to do. All right, because I want to make this video as simple for you guys as possible. What we now want to do is we now want to start figuring out where we want the camera to be. To do that, you want to hit 0 on your numpad, and that will bring up the camera just like so. And what we can now do is press this little plus icon that was on the top, and you want to make sure that you want to lock right here the camera to view, because currently if I move around, I just pop out of the camera view. All right, so hit 0 on your numpad again, and now you want to click lock camera to view, and now you can move around the camera just like you would move around in Blender, right? And you want to make sure you zoom on your character, get it right into the frame just like so. That's pretty good. That is pretty good, just like so. I like that, all right? And make sure you unselect it just like so. All right, we can now hide this window right here. Actually, I can just keep it just like so. And you can hit, of course, 1 to get out of the camera or just move around simply. Okay, now let's go back actually to the camera view and let's hit Shift Z. If you hit Shift Z, it brings up a quick render, right? This is not the final render. The final render is going to be much better quality, but this is a quick render. But as you can see, the image is really dark. And that is because there is no light currently. Currently, the character is in the dark because we have not selected anything that is a light. So what you want to do is you want to hit Escape, or Shift Z again, sorry. Hit Shift Z again, and then simply get out of the camera view. And now you want to hit Shift A. What Shift A does is it brings up this little menu, and by using this little menu, you're going to be able to add a new shape. And in our case, we're just going to add a plane, all right? We're going to add a plane like that. And again, we're going to be able to move that around just like we did with the character. And we want to move it behind the camera. Then we can rotate it as well, right? Just like so, right? Maybe get it a bit more straight. Okay, that looks pretty good. Right, let me just get that right. Just like so, perfect. Make sure you bring it behind the little, okay, the actual camera part is this little dot, so make sure you bring it behind that, otherwise you're not going to see your character right. And then you want to bring the plane down, and you know what, I might actually move this a bit to the side and maybe scale it up a little bit more so it basically emits more light, because this plane is going to be like a softbox. I don't know if you know what a softbox means. A softbox is, for example, what streamers use to light their face up when they're on stream. This is exactly the same thing. Currently, however, it's not emitting any light because we haven't assigned it a texture. So make sure you select this and then go over to the texture tab and click on new, right? And once you've clicked on new, you want to change what type of surface it is, and make sure you select emission right here, all right? And click on that. What emission means is that it will simply emit light. And then you can simply change the color. So you know what? I'm going to make mine a little bit, I'm going to try to make it a little bit more like a treasure chest, right? So let me make it a little bit yellowish / reddish. slight orange, just like so. And now if I hit 0 on my numpad and hit Shift Z, you can see that our character is a little bit lit up. But of course, you can now change this value, the strength, and maybe make it like 4. And you can see that now it's much brighter. And you can play with this. You can add multiple planes. For example, as a quick example, all right, of course, make sure you hit Shift Z so it doesn't eat through your computer's resources. Okay, so let me actually delete that. You can of course hit Control C, Control V, but I'm going to delete that and I'm going to add a new one, a plane. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to scale that down a little bit. Okay, and I'm actually going to put this inside of the chest. So let me get this lined up just right for you guys. Okay, I got it pretty much lined up with the inside of the chest, and I'm also going to make that emissive, all right? So I'm going to select a nice red texture for this, all right? And make sure you select emission right here, and maybe let's make it strength 6, for example, so it's nice and bright, all right? And now if I look at the scene, what I did, and make sure I bring this down so it's out of view, just like so, if I hit Shift Z, look at that effect. That is amazing. Don't you like it? And I could make this probably even brighter, like a 10. There we go. That looks pretty nice. Okay, so this is how you create Blender renders, right? And the final step is to actually render, because what you're seeing right now is a quick render, which is not the best quality. So to do this, you want to go ahead and go to the render tab right here. And there's a couple of things we're going to want to do here. First of all, at the top, you can select right here which device you want the render to happen on. Now, this will just speed up the process. So in my case, I'm going to use my GPU because GPUs are generally a bit better at creating renders of images, but in your case, it might be your CPU. Okay, if you're on the laptop and you don't have a GPU, then just use your CPU. You will get the same result. It will just be a little bit faster if you use whichever device is more powerful in your case. The second thing you want to do is you can actually select the resolution right here. So currently it's set to the resolution of my screen, but you can also bump up the quality. Make sure you put that to 100% because you want the max quality. All right, and then finally go down to the bottom and select transparent. This will make the background of your image transparent, so you won't have any background pretty much. And this is how, if you put, like, for example, another image behind this one afterwards, you will basically see the other image which will be behind this one, and this image will not have any background. Okay, so what we can do now is you can exit out of Shift Z and you want to hit F12, and this will start the render process just like it's doing right now. And now you just want to wait. You just want to wait for it to render. All right, and a little while later, your image should be done. It's fully rendered. It's high quality. You can zoom on it. It's 1080p. Of course, you could make this 4K. You could make this 8K. You know what? You could also go to 16K if you want. Make it as big as you want. It will just take more time, but you can pretty much make it as big as you want. And now the final step is to hit the F3 button, and this will save your file. You can choose where you want to save it, and that's pretty much all of it. That is how you use Blender. Now, of course, if you have any questions, leave those in the comments. I will be more than happy to answer them and help you with anything. One final thing, if you want to exit out of the render and edit the pose again, you can simply hit escape, right? That's a button that not a lot of people find on their first try. I know it took me a little while to find it. Anyway, that is unfortunately all the time I have today. If you guys liked this video, then make sure to hit that like button. That would be so appreciated. And if you want to see more tutorials about Blender or other software, then make sure to leave your suggestions in the comments, or simply, like I said, leave a like on this video. Anyway, that's it for me for today. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one. Goodbye, everybody.